Welcome to the
We're officially here.
Get Up and Go. Well, not Get Up and Go. That's your business. This is the Get Up and Scale podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about small, locally owned businesses. How do you take that to the next level? How do you scale your business, become a multi-unit operator, to franchise your concept, license it out? Justin and I have been in the tour and activity industry, for a while, and we've grown our businesses, turned into titans of the industry, so to speak. Not really, but really the theme of this podcast is, how do you take your business to the next level? If you want to grow and expand your business, go into new cities, go into new states, you want to license your technology, whether you're a tour business or any other sort of service, brick and mortar style business, what's the path you take, And so Justin and I have known each other for several years, and we talk a lot about this, and we decided to start this podcast to have these discussions, interview guests who are involved with growing and scaling businesses, with the services and industries that you use. How do you build your tech stack? That's what we're here to do today.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to pick your brain more and to have guests on and pick their brain and learn more from people that are doing some cool things in the industry and outside of the industry. And, I think the cool thing is that we have a good amount of people in our networks that we can have on this show and be able to have some cool conversations, and for both of us to learn more that we can take back to our own businesses, but hopefully also other people listening can use some of the things that we've learned and take back to their own businesses also. So I'm super excited to do this. And yeah, like Kai said, we've had a good amount of back and forth over the last few years since we've gotten to know each other. And what better way to do it kind of in front of everyone on a podcast now, So I think this is going to be cool. I'm really excited to get to know you more and to have some fun guests on here. So
I was gonna say same. I feel like we can build a friendship on air.
I gotta work, grind. That's just the way it is. I gotta get up, scale, and grow my biz. I gotta scale, grow, get up, go, scale, grow, get up, go.
I feel like a really good place to start is getting the audience to get to know us a little bit, and maybe we can interview each other a little and get to explain what it is that we do and let people know how we kind of have scaled our own businesses and gotten to where we've gotten to. So I'll start off by asking you a couple of questions.
Yeah, shoot.
First one, how long have you been in the tour industry?
So I've been doing this for, 13 years now.
So quite a while. I've been in it for 7.5 years, and I think we call it the tourism industry, but really it's just like the experience industry. I think there's a broader kind of topic here in that everyone does experiences on a pretty regular basis, that whether they know it or not. And I think people tend to think, we're just tour specific, but experiences branches across all different industries. So I think it's going to be fun to kind of delve into that a little bit more throughout this podcast. So when you first got started 13 years ago, what did that look like? What were you doing? Why did you start? Like, how did that all come about?
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't the sort of person that knew he wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't a lot of people have these origin stories. So when I was 7, I was going door to door selling my drawings to my neighbors. And by the time I was 14, I had a car wash business. I don't think that was me, so to speak. I was kind of a nerdy, introverted kid. I like computer games, But anyway, I went to college and eventually went to law school. Really what started it is I got involved with a business accelerator that was starting. It was a student group. And I was interested in becoming, I was in law school, so I wanted to be a lawyer. And I was interested in working with entrepreneurs. Because it seemed fun and exciting, and I was really steeped in the literature and the blogs online, watching Y Combinator. I was really into tech, and I figured this would be a cool legal practice, to work with startup law, so to speak. And so I was just curious, and I also was looking at a bunch of student debt. Like law school is really expensive, and I'm like, maybe I should start like a small business to help pay for my student loans. So once I become an attorney, I can have some like passive income or something. Originally I was, I went to Penn State, and I was looking at these like 6-person bicycles called Comfy bikes. I don't know if you've seen those before. They're really goofy looking. They're like in a circle. And I was like, yeah. So I was like, maybe I could build this business for like tailgaters or whatever. But you go down that rabbit hole, and eventually one of my friends was like, oh, they got these like big daddy pedal bikes out in the Netherlands. And I'm like, that's really cool. It was like one of those things where I knew I would be my own best customer, like instantly. The second I saw it, I was like, I would totally do that. So like seeing that concept, just watching the YouTube video, my friend Tommy showed it to me, it like turned me into an entrepreneur instantly. And I had a little bit of confidence because I was like working with the business accelerator. I was like kind of coaching startups, like they were doing demo days. And I was like, I could run a business, like you just buy a few of these things. Like how hard could it be? So like I kind of like backed into it. I reached out to my friend from undergrad, my fraternity brother, pitched it to him. Like he loved it instantly. And we're like, yeah, raise a little money. We'll go on Craigslist. We'll find some guy to build a bike. Like how hard could that be? You just weld together some metal parts, throw some wheels on it. Like literally, I had no idea what I was getting into.
Yeah, I mean that sounds pretty safe too.
Yeah. I was I was like a very like overachiever student. I was in like every club at law school. I was the chair of the Law and Entrepreneurship Project. I was on Law Review, and I'm like, oh, one more thing, I'll just start a business too.
Yeah, why not?
It was a lot of Adderall. But
that's crazy.
So surprisingly, Andrew and I don't want to go into a whole origin story because I could talk for forever, but we raised the money somehow. Like Andrew and I had like $0 to our name. I'm pretty sure I had like $56 in my college bank account because I spent all my student loans like going to restaurants, sort of thing. But we raised like 80 grand from friends and family, had a bike built, launched in Tucson, Arizona, where we went to undergrad. Oh. Total disaster. Like I think we had the media on board. Like we invited, like a journalist came, and like the bike kept breaking down during our first tour. And like it made the front page of the Sunday paper, and it was like trolley whatchamacallit is open ... for now.
Ooh. Oh man.
Yeah.
So you're all hyped to have the press out, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be the big stamp on the industry, and then it's kind of up in the air after that. Yeah.
And then my 2 local partners who were running the day-to-day of the business, because mind you, I was still in Pennsylvania in law school.
Oh, okay.
They quit after like 2 months. Oh. The city announced they were doing a streetcar project. So like they tore up all the roads, and we had no route. By December, we had like $400 in the bank account. And we had spent like, I think 120 grand at this point.
Wow.
So that's how I got started.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I think it's fun to hear, a lot of people have such different kind of origins and whys and all of these things. And it's funny to hear that that's how it all started, But I will say you quadrupled your money because you said you started with 50 and you ended the year with 200. So that's the positive that we take away from that, right?
This guy, yeah,
genius,
business mastermind. Oh yeah.
Genius.
So
that's crazy.
That inauspicious start, it's kind of, I'm a stubborn guy, and so that winter, looking at the empty bank account, looking at the business not working, is like, I ended up graduating from law school, moved back to Arizona to take the bar, and I was like, I know we can make this thing work, and so. The long and short of it is I could talk about this forever because there's so many hilarious stories about the early days. Like party bikes back then was totally Mad Max. There was no rules. Our customers had squirt guns. They were doing like Chinese fire drills. Like we didn't know what we were doing. But I had a colleague in Raleigh, and I had an extra bike, and he was like, this would do really well here. We opened in Raleigh. I hired everyone on Skype remotely. and it took off immediately. And we had hired a manager, and off Skype. Never met the guy. He was like 60, used to run GNC stores. He was drinking a lot. I flew out to Raleigh to fire the manager and try to find a new manager. And I always mention this moment, but we had this old warehouse, spray paint everywhere, like leaky pipes. Wait for tour to get back. The tour gets back. It's like 14 people screaming at the top of their lungs. If you've ever seen a party bike, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But they got off the tour, and they ran off, and they said, "You're the owner." The girl ran up to me. She's like, "That was the most fun I ever had in my whole life." And at that moment, I was like, this is what I want to do full time.
That's so cool. And so this was pre-franchising the business, right? Like this is just guys were kind of owning the locations and trying to figure out what's working, what's not working.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, when you have those moments, when you have those moments that you see someone else enjoying it as much as you think that they should be enjoying it, or as much as you're enjoying it, that's when it's like, okay, this it could be a real thing here. That I'm sure that was a fun moment for you. That's pretty cool.
She was being serious too. She was like literally telling me that was the most funny, and I thought to myself, I could sell that moment. Fun out of everything you could sell, selling fun and people like enjoying themselves and letting go, escaping from the real world. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. See, I was one of those kids that I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I was like picking raspberries off of my neighbor's bush and like making a jam out of it and then selling it to that same neighbor that I picked it off of her bush, And so, and I had lemonade stands. I was like selling CDs in high school. I would like put together some like mixed, I'd like make my own mixtapes of like new artists that were coming out and would sell CDs. And so I was always like hustling, but didn't know that like, oh, I want to do this. Like I want to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. Until the opportunity came up.
Instinct,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was a rapper for like 10 years. I pursued, a career in rapping for quite a while until I was about 23, 24, which is right when Get Up and Go started. And so...
Side note, we're going to have to hear some of this at some point.
We may be able to sneak it in here and there. We can make work.
Like the podcast theme song should be like you spitting bars. Totally.
There we go. That could work.
Anyways.
Yeah. So, so I did that for a while, and it's cool because like it actually taught me a lot about networking and fitting myself in different scenes and scenarios and putting myself out there, right? Like in these weird situations, and it made my skin really thick. I remember a time I was handing out CDs after a Machine Gun Kelly concert back in 2011 in Orlando. And I didn't even go to the concert. I was just there for afterwards when everyone was leaving. I was standing outside handing everyone CDs. And I remember people would literally grab my CD and be like, "Oh, cool, thanks." And then they would walk 3 feet and they would throw it on the ground. And I would just watch that happen. I'm like, damn, there goes my dreams on the ground right there in front of me, Yeah. And so like that made my skin pretty thick. And anyways,
do you think
I ended up going to?
I was gonna say like that's actually really interesting to me how you started off in the creative industry. Mm-hmm. Which is like famously like a winner take all sort of thing.
Yeah. And I didn't win at the end of the day. That was a failure. Like I look at it as a success because I learned so much. I had some really cool experiences. I met so many people that are still in my life and whatever. But like at the end of the day, I kind of failed. I'm not doing that as a career right now.
Did you make money when you did it?
I made at most like $5,000 in 1 year doing it.
Okay.
So I made a little bit, but in the rap industry, you don't really make money until you're the headliner. You know,
Right.
If you're doing opening shows, you're usually paying to open for the headliner. So you have to spend a lot of money to even get yourself out there, and
Yeah.
it's a whole nother beast. And so
Your origin story is cooler than mine. I was in law school, like on law review, and you're like at an MGK concert passing out like mixtapes.
back in the day, it's crazy. And so I was going to UCF, University of Central Florida, as this was happening, and got my degree in marketing. Didn't know what I really wanted to do. So afterwards, I like moved in with my mom. She lived in a 55 and up community. I got kicked out within 2 weeks because they saw my car there every day. So I moved in with my dad, who was living on a boat, and I worked on a boat for a little bit. And then I was overdoing that because I was ripping up teak with my bare hands for like 2 weeks straight. And I was like, this is not fun. So I ended up finding a real estate marketing firm that I worked for 6 months. And then I ended up working for Golf Now, which is owned by the Golf Channel, and worked there for like 3.5 years as I found the idea of get up and go kayaking. One day, my now wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, and I went to a Blue Spring State Park here in Florida, and they were just turning cars away. There was like a state park guy just literally just standing out there waving his finger around like, sorry, we're full for the day, go find something else to do. And we had, drove an hour and a half to get there, and there's nothing else to do in DeBary, Florida, right? Like there's nothing around there. So I remember vividly, we pulled over at a gas station and we both pulled out our phones looking for things to do. And there was a car next to us that pulled out like an old school map, and they were like looking for things to do. And I'm just like, I was like, it's crazy that they're just
what year was
throwing this was 2016. And so to me, it's crazy that like they're just throwing away business, right? Like they're turning away all of this business. I wanted to go and just get in the water, whether that was tubing or kayaking or canoeing or whatever. So the whole ride back, I'm like thinking, man, like how do I capture some of that, some of that demand that's definitely there? And I called 4 other springs across Florida, and they were all in the same boat. Like, hey, we're completely sold out. Try tomorrow. You got to get here like before we even open at like 6:30.
What was this tour specifically? Like, was it on a kayak or was it just like tubing?
It wasn't even a tour. We just wanted to go and rent a kayak or rent a tube.
Got it.
Like we just knew that we wanted to get in the water and be at the state park, right? And so I call all of the other springs that are in the area. They're all in the same scenario. Hey, we're sold out. Can't get you on the water. Come tomorrow morning at 6:30 and maybe we'll get you out there. And I'm just like, man, there's got to be a better way to like experience these really beautiful waterways that we have. And so at first I'm like, is there a way to create like an Uber of kayaks where I just like deliver kayaks to locations and then like come back and pick them up a couple hours later? And I ended up making a business plan and getting a loan from the bank within 2 weeks of that day getting turned around.
The bank gave you a loan in 2 weeks?
Within 2 weeks, yes. I got a loan for a boat. I got a boat loan, which I did use on kayaks. So like, it was kind of true.
Yeah.
And I had a full-time job at the time where I only got a $12,000 loan. It wasn't a big loan. As you know, kayaks don't cost as much as a trolley pub, right? Or like a boat. And so I needed 6 kayaks. That was all I needed in a trailer, and I needed some money to do it. So literally within 2 weeks, built the business plan, got the loan, borrowed my friend's truck, drove up to the Panhandle to pick up some clear kayaks from some random lady who I don't like, and drove them back and started giving tours like 2 weeks after that. So it was a super quick realization of like a gap in the marketplace and
that's
knowing that
fast.
I needed to execute. Yeah, I knew that I needed to execute because I did a lot of research, and no one was using clear kayaks to give tours at all anywhere in Florida.
What made you lean towards clear kayaks? Like what gave you that part of the idea?
I think that was like, I had done a bioluminescent kayak tour before the year prior, my wife surprised me with a random bioluminescent kayak trip. And in my head, I remember like we had seen clear kayak somewhere online in a different country. And I'm like, man, imagine how cool that bioluminescent kayak tour would have been if we were in a clear kayak, or imagine how cool all these springs would be if you're in a clear kayak and you have the opportunity to see whatever it may be below you. And so in my head too, I'm like, a clear kayak is much more aesthetically, pleasing for social media than a yellow kayak may be. And that's where my wheelhouse was. I had my marketing degree. I had tried to market myself for 10 years doing music, and knew that would be kind of the big differentiator, because no one was doing tours in clear kayaks at all when I first started. So that's why I was trying to be so quick about it and wanted to start it up so fast, is just because none of the competitors were doing it. None of the competitors really had good websites. You couldn't book tours online. No one had social media presence. Like, it's probably the same with you. You look around to see what else is out there, right? And if you see stuff lacking, you're like, I could do that better, and I knew that I could do the marketing side of things better than what I was seeing. And I think I've proven that over the last 7 years a little bit.
When you first started out, curious, did you was it a part of your business plan that you wanted to be huge and you wanted to open in all these cities, or were you laser focused on, I just want to make this work and make some money?
Yeah, no, at first, I had no idea that it was going to be more than one location. Yeah. I was like, at that point, I just wanted enough money to be able to live and cover my expenses and quit my full-time job. And that took 2.5 years to be able to even get to that point. And so it didn't starting.
Was it a success right away, or like you said, it took a couple years to really build the first location?
Not at all. Like the first year I made $2,000.
Top line or profit?
Top line, not profit.
Damn.
Yeah. That's as much money as I made.
You got the same story as me. You open up first year, you have all these big dreams. We had these crazy spreadsheets, and then you get to the end of the year, you're like, what am I doing with my life?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The good thing for me was that I was only doing it on my spare time, and I had a full-time job. So when people were like, oh my God, did you take a big risk by starting this business? I was like, not really, because I had a really good full-time job and I could pay off the loan. And if it failed, it was $12,000 at the end of the day. I could sell some of the equipment back. I could pay off the loan with my full-time job. But the second year we made $17,000. So even then, I'm starting to do something, but that's still top line. Like my take home is not $17,000. And
that second year, was it still a side gig then?
Yeah, still a side gig until the end of that second year, and that's when the majority of that $17,000 was actually made at the end of that second year, as we started going viral on social media and stuff. So that's when the idea of maybe this is bigger than what I thought started creeping into my head a little bit.
Do you attribute the real growth of the business came from organic social media? So the viral content that started happening, is that really what took you to the next level and started really increasing your sales?
Yeah, 10,000%. Yeah. We were one day. I remember this lady Barbara. This would have been 5 years ago. She reached out from Insider and was like, "Can we post some of your content on our Instagram page, on our Facebook?" And I was like, yeah, that would be cool. Obviously they have millions of followers. 5 years ago, you had to rely on the bigger companies to go viral. Yeah. You couldn't do it yourself. And
there's no discovery right back then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so literally within 3 days of that getting posted, it had 5 million views. And then BuzzFeed is reaching out to us, and Yahoo's reaching out to us, and all of these other companies. And my business, the actual amount of business that we were doing, 100x'd within that first week. And that's when people were asking me, do you operate at this location or do you operate at this spring or over here? And then like I said, that idea of kind of growth started creeping in my head. Like, we don't, but maybe we should. And that's when I started kind of thinking about the future a little bit more. And that's literally what changed the whole trajectory of what's happened, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's like almost the polar opposite of our story, in the sense that like from the early days, like we actually wanted to scale a lot. Like even when we were talking about being a side project, we like had all these ambitions of growth. We're like, hey, we're gonna hire managers, we're gonna open into, it was the early days of the party bike craze, and so we had all these spreadsheets with like all these cities we were gonna open up in, and there was never this moment where all of a sudden we have this huge influx of business. It was like very incremental, like once I started doing it full time, like we had good growth, but it was like steady, and the vast majority of money had to go back into the assets. And, we didn't have like viral, and this is kind of before the concept of like viral business media even happened. Like, I quit to do the business full time in late 2012, so back then like Instagram barely even existed. The only like video content that was out there was what was that app called? You had those like 6-second videos. Do you remember
Vine?
that?
Of course.
There was Vine. Yeah. Yes. But like the advantage we had in our business,
businesses weren't using Vine, right? It's just like these kids that are making these funny videos.
Yeah, they were really funny too.
So how were you getting traction if you're not using, social media back then? Like, what was your guys' method of getting customers?
So we were lucky in that we just had a really attention-getting concept. I mean, that's what I loved about it from day one. Is it was so bizarre when we first opened that when we would drive down the street in a new market, people would come out of the restaurants to stand on the side of the streets and stare.
Oh, wow.
So this is like, it went viral like in a local level.
Yeah.
Because we operate where most of our potential customers are, because it's like a pub crawler. So like our target audience sees us every day and they get super. And so like we didn't even advertise in these early days. Like I think for the first 3-4 years of the business, like we'd grow like typically like just steady, like 50 to 60% a year we would grow, right? Pipeline, and I'd open in new cities.
Do you feel like if you did advertise that you would be where you are now a little faster, or do you feel like that wasn't the market back then?
Well, okay. So first, I think we could have grown faster if we advertised 100%, especially back then with the way PPC was and AdWords and stuff. We could have really taken advantage of that, and we could have reached a lot more customers a lot quicker. So we could, like, the demand could have reached the supply a lot faster. But I will say we were lucky in the sense is that we really didn't have to do that. Most of our growth was supply constraints because the trolleys are really expensive, unlike the kayaks. And so, like, I still had to pay myself and leave enough money over to buy trolleys to grow. And the trolleys were like $50,000 each, right? So it's like, you could be booked out, but you couldn't grow. And then there'd be like a year waiting list to get another party bike because everyone was buying them. Yeah. So even if you had enough money to grow, you had to wait till next season before you'd even get it. That was really like what, if I could go back in time, I would have started the party bike manufacturing company on day one.
Sooner.
Like my original partner, Robert, was telling us to do, and he was so right, and I would have supplied my own bikes and, all these other things. But it was the opposite of you in the sense that like the first 5 years of the business was just kind of like slow and incremental growth. And we really had to just grind out the business, and try to build management structure and try to learn how to manage remotely and, do all this stuff. But we never had this like big moment where it's like, oh, we're making tons of money. It was more like just like every year it's like pushing harder towards growth.
Yeah. So how did you guys determine to open new cities? Was it just you were seeing the current one's doing well and you're like, let's see if it just keeps working in different cities? Or how many did you guys open the first 5 years?
Yeah, so we weren't that sophisticated back then. Like we were just like, a lot of it was like where are party bikes allowed to be on the road? Because a lot of places they weren't allowed, where there isn't currently one. Like it was pretty basic. I mean, knowing what I know now, it approached a lot differently. Is where do I want to be? And I'm going to go in and change the rules to make it happen. So back then I would just, we'd have spreadsheets. We'd be on Wikipedia constantly checking population levels, looking at Chamber of Commerce websites to see what the tourism numbers are for various cities. You would get a target, and I'd fly out and I'd go meet a bunch of people and drink at the bars and just try to see if I liked the market a lot. So I would scout. I went down to Orlando back in those days. I mean, I went everywhere. I went to Birmingham, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, all over the Midwest. And I would just fly around having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was like, this sounds like, can you do that full time as your job?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds kind of nice.
Yeah, but, in our first, we made a partnership that was kind of ill-founded with an early investor who ended up breaking up with. But, it was kind of just like I would get a vibe check in the city on my trip. And then I would email the city council and see if I could work out the legality of it. And the ones where we could, I would open. So, our first cities were, I opened in Raleigh. Then we opened in Arlington, Virginia, like in the DC metro area. Then we bought a business in Madison. And that's kind of what taught us the whole M&A strategy, which, we've bought probably 9 or 10 businesses now. Just we acquire independently operated locations and bring them in as a corporate store. We went to Madison. We opened in Houston, Ann Arbor, Michigan. And once we got to like 5 or 6, and then started expanding within North Carolina to Charlotte, Durham, Wilmington. Once we got to like 5+ locations, though, like we really started hitting a wall. It was... I'm just one person, right? And I'm trying to hire these managers. A manager would quit or we'd have to fire them. All of a sudden, I'm having to fly across the country, like interview people, try to teach them this whole business system that we've created, but we didn't have any documents or anything like that. It was just kind of going in person and be like, hey, this is how you do this. We didn't have any like formal structure. And that's what really started getting us to think deeper about the business was like, there's only so much you can grow with this strategy before you start hitting some big roadblocks, especially with our unit economics. And that was probably 5-6 years in at that point. And that's what really got us start thinking about like the bigger picture is how do you actually scale with a business like this,
Yeah. And you can't be everywhere, right? Like you can't be flying to these cities constantly to train new managers and find new, and even just interviewing people like that. That alone just takes so much time,
It's so stressful, and having to answer the phone at all hours of the night. It's like 11 o'clock at night, you're with your friends, you get a call, it's Ann Arbor, the trolley broke down, and then it's Houston, Texas, I got this problem. And it made me really reevaluate, like, what do I want out of this business? Like, what are my goals? And if I could design a lifestyle around how I grow my business, like, what would that look like?
Yeah. So it took about 5 years for the franchise conversation to start coming in, and then a few more years after that until you actually executed on that, or how quickly did you guys turn it into a franchise after kind of those first few years?
Yeah, it was year 5 when we really started thinking about diversifying what we did. So that's when we started looking at boats. And then B, what's the model look like for future growth? And I remember we had this like business retreat at a cabin in Idaho. We kind of locked ourselves in a room for a couple days and we're like, what are we going to do with this? Is this going to be a lifestyle business? Do we want to grow? And if so, how are we going to grow? And we both went in there and they're like, we want to blow this up. Like Andrew and I, my partner, like we'd both rather fail than be small, I guess, in a way. Like that was our goal, right? Like we believed in this business and we wanted to be big. We wanted to scale. We wanted to make lots of money and we wanted to like execute this vision we had for what we could provide for our customers and our staff and everything. So we were like, we're not willing to we could have just at that moment said, hey, we're going to coast. We probably could have made decent money just operating the business, only working 20 hours a week and let it be that. But at least for me, that's not what I'm on this earth for,
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the journey is almost more exciting than just coasting, and being good and content. It's almost like the friction and the speed bumps sometimes are what like gives you the motivation to want to do more. I don't know why that is, but I'm kind of the same way in that like I could have stopped at 5 locations. I could have stopped at 10. I could have stopped at 15. I could, like what at the end of the day, why keep opening more. And for me, I think it's just like, I literally love the journey of doing it. And I love giving other people the opportunities to run their own businesses and teach them how to do it. And like that part of it is
That's
so
the
fun to
best.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like reaching a new number of locations is like really woohoo. It's cool, but like the fun part for me is really giving that opportunity to others and like teaching them how to do it and seeing them be happy doing it. And like I feel like that's the cool part. And even though our journeys, I think were a little different starting out, like I feel like that's kind of the part that we really intersect is we both really enjoy giving back that opportunity to others and teaching others how to do it and refining the process and like making it replicable, because that's ultimately how you scale your business, right? Is like you need to make this a thing that other people can do, or else you're not really going to be able to scale that easily, and there's going to be a lot of friction along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious about that. Yeah. Cause like the reality is the things and I'm skipping ahead in time for both of us here, but
Yeah.
the things that I've learned from franchising are the same things that would allowed us to continue to grow at that point we were at,
Mhm.
which is like building real business processes in place, building the communication tools, kind of having your playbook in place. But because it was ourselves, like we didn't build that for ourselves. But as soon as we started franchising and actually building this out, we realized suddenly we had more capacity for our own operations,
Yeah.
because the same playbook you use to teach your franchisees to grow and the same systems you implement, like you can use for yourself. So like since we started franchising, we've grown from 5 to 16 corporate owned stores. And we treat our managers almost exactly the same way we treat our franchisees. Essentially, it's the exact same program, the exact same tech stack. We've realized that we get in the capacity to grow ourselves by teaching other people how to grow. And it's kind of like teaching. Like you think you understand something until you have to explain it to somebody else. But in the process of
Yes.
explaining to it, like you come to know it so much better. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what we found.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like so important, is just being able to have the SOPs, right, and the operations manuals. And when someone else is asking you like, why do you do it this way, and you have to explain why you do it that way, it makes you think about it like, why do I do it that way, and
Oh,
could I
totally.
do it differently, and is there a better way to do it, or how would you do it? Like, tell me your answer so I can maybe see if there's a way we can incorporate that. And I think that's the fun part of like opening multiple, is that every time the thought is you should be a little more efficient at things, because there's someone asking you, why do you do it this way?
Yep.
Can you do it a little differently? What if we tried this, right?
Their
And
ideas, right? Yeah, like your
yeah,
managers and your franchisees, I feel like end up like teaching you a lot as well,
yeah,
giving you a lot
yeah,
of the best ideas.
yeah. They end up being the ones that are, the practitioners and doing it daily, and you end up being more of the idea person and more of the, systems person, right? And,
Right.
and so as time evolves and new things come along, the hope is that they help you make everyone more efficient. And I think that's one of the huge benefits, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a later episode of franchising, is that you get the trial and error of everyone before you, right? Like, it's been proven to work X amount of times, and so many people have gone through the process that by now it should be pretty efficient.
Totally. Yeah, I mean it's borne out in the numbers too. I mean, if you look at business failure rates of franchise business versus non-franchise units, I mean, I was reading a statistic like for the top 100 franchise, the business failure rate, I think it was 5 years, was only 2%,
Wow.
and independently owned in that same industry was 40.
Wow.
But yeah, you're standing on like a giant, you're standing on like a big pile of bodies essentially of all the lessons learned in that industry by using a franchise. That whole network, every failure, every mistake gets put into the franchise system if it's a healthy one, right? And you're like, hey, here's a pitfall. We've been there, right? Like,
Yep.
no, you don't want to do it that way. We've tried that, and that was really bad.
That comes up
It's
a
like
lot.
just as much about like what to avoid as it is like what to do,
Yeah. So in that journey, when did you actually turn it into a franchise? And then, just a recap of like how many locations you're at now, just to tie a bow on like the rest of, your journey up to present day.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get more into this later, and God knows I love to talk. I think you do too. But I guess that's good if we're podcasting, right? Yeah, so it's funny on that meeting we had up there, that summit, we got together and, we call it a summit. It was just two of us like sitting around in the snow, and skiing.
Are your wives or girlfriends at the time like, what the hell are these two doing? Or like,
we weren't married back then.
Okay.
I don't think. I think he might have been married, but we were still like young and fun. Let's call it.
Okay.
Like kind of like, I guess you're still young and fun, but you are married. But we were still like, let's call it flexible,
Okay.
So if we did have
Fair
girlfriends, they're like, it's normal for Kai and Andrew to get in a cabin.
Disappear for a little.
Yeah, be there for a couple days. So we didn't know what model we were going to take. And in fact, I don't think we even talked about franchising. When we were looking at it back then, we were really thinking about diversifying the business, building business processes like we've been talking about, those SOPs, and how do you build organizational capacity for your business, right?
Yeah.
And we were looking at different models. So we're like, do we do the partnership model? We were really considering licensing, but we knew that supply was key for our industry, right? Like we had problems getting the bikes. We had to wait a year to get them. We wanted to get into the boats, but we weren't a fan of what was on the market. So I think a big thing we came away with from there is in order to scale in this industry, we need to increase the production supply and quality. And if our vendors aren't able to do that, we're going to have to do it ourselves. And so, I think you can hear everything that in our journey has been very difficult. Like the challenges we face are very hard. And so we had to get into manufacturing. And so that's really where franchising came from. Is I knew I wanted to manufacture commercial vessels, and it's not easy to build boats.
I
Coast
can't
Guard
imagine.
certified boats. But I moved, I found a partner to work with us and kind of teach us the ropes on how to get involved with sea-wide boats. I moved to Florida. I had a new girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I was like, hey, this paddle pub thing I've been messing around with, I'm like, I think I'm going to build the boats, and I'm going to move to Florida, maybe 3 to 6 months or whatever. And I'm like, you can stay here and visit me, or, you want to come? And she was like, oh, I'm going. So
That's cool.
She quit her job and came with me, which is awesome. We started building the boats, and it was a long journey. I mean, I'm talking like I had to rent out a space. I had to buy welding machines, brake presses. I had to learn all this stuff. I had to learn to drive a forklift.
Did you have to go get funding for this to happen also, or was this just kind of funded through now the business being where it's at?
Yeah, at this point, we had resolved the issue with our former investor. We had a settlement agreement with him. And so we were kind of free to, traditionally our business was almost all bootstrapped outside of some small investment rounds we had done. Mm-hmm. And when we looked at the boat building business, we really underestimated how much money we needed. So Andrew and I just put our own cash in, and it was tight. We probably needed 5 times as much money as we had. We were just lucky because the demand was so strong for a solid commercial boat manufacturer that, we started getting orders right away. And so Andrew and I were able to put some money in to kind of keep things going. And luckily we started getting boats out the door within a few months of opening. And so we were just barely able to hit that initial cash crunch or whatever. We were just skipping on it like this. You know what I mean? You get the boat orders, you buy all the cost of supplies, get down there, we're like, whoa!
Another sale.
And then it would be like, whoa! Somehow we pulled through that, and through that process, and then I started building party bikes too, because I was looking at these boats and I'm like, hey, we got this cycle station, let's just put some wheels on it. It was a long process. My clients are the ones who drove us towards franchising, because at the time we were like, hey, we were partnering with people in different locations in San Diego and in Miami, Fort Lauderdale. We basically partnered with existing tour operators. That was kind of our model. It's like, hey, we come in hey, we're going to give you a boat. We're going to call it Paddle Pub. It'll go alongside your business. You're going to pay us some money, and that was working pretty good. Our lawyer was kind of like, this looks a lot like franchising. He's
Yeah.
And we'd read some books on franchising and went to Arrival, and we're kind of like, that could be an interesting thing we did. But really our clients were asking for it. They would say, do you franchise? Can we license the name Paddle Pub? Can we use your website? So we just sat down, met with the franchise attorney, and we were like, let's start a franchise.
Yeah. That's crazy.
We think the demand is there. We saw the demand from our clients, that people recognized the experience we had at that point of 7-8 years we've been doing this.
Yeah.
And that we could fulfill the need for it,
Yeah. So what are all of the brands now? Because there's a few, and are they all franchisable, or how does that kind of end up playing out?
Yeah, so we started with Trolley Pub and Paddle Pub. So Trolley Pub, for those that don't know, these are the party bikes that are like 14, 15 passenger. Everyone pedals. There's a sober driver, right? And they go bar hopping. So we knew we were going to franchise that because that was our bread and butter at the time. And then Paddle Pub, specifically the boats we were building are cycle boats. So these are like the trolley pubs, but on the water. So these are like 20, 25 passenger boats with a big cycle station. They pedal, it moves the big paddle wheel, right? So we launched with Trolley Pub and Paddle Pub, and it was 2020 was the year we launched, which was rough, for our industry. But we got 3 franchises within the first 3 months of launching. And then I think, we've grown. Our franchise is now 3 years old, and we're up to about 40 units at this point.
That's wild.
And I think, I don't know the exact breakdown. I'd have to look at like our database, Fran Connect or whatever. But I believe we have 18 Trolley Pub locations, 20 Paddle Pubs, and 3 Tiki Pubs currently.
That's
and
so
Tiki
cool.
Pub is our newest brand. We worked on it in the background for a couple years, but honestly, the cycle boat industry, our Paddle Pub business, was growing so quickly that we couldn't dedicate any resources to it. But we saw the market shift, and we for a long time wanted an asset that could appeal to a broader demographic. So like the Tiki Pub can be used to target families, for instance, and older people, not necessarily like all just party people, like birthday parties and bachelorette parties.
Yeah.
And the trend was like really growing. We saw a lot of Tiki boats in the marketplace opening up. And so finally, we put our heads together and developed 2 products. So we have our 6-pack Tiki Pub, which is brand new. So it's like a small 6-passenger boat, as well as our large COI Tiki boats. Those launched last year, and we have 3 locations for that, with many more to come.
That's so cool. So there's essentially 3 different brands there, right? That you can franchise out of any of those, correct?
Yeah, and that's kind of the vision, right? Yeah,
and so, you guys still own a good amount of locations yourselves that are corporately owned, right?
Yeah. So we think of TourScale as a franchise platform, and so our goal is to have many brands under TourScale in the tour and activity industry. That's kind of our long-term goal. And so we've started with kind of these niches that we know really well, and we're trying to, we intend on expanding out like what we do, both on the urban tour side in the cities and on the water. That's obviously a long process, but our ideal solution is that our franchisees can be the the tour business for their cities and their markets, both on land and in the water, with multiple tour businesses. Because we found that when you have those local economies of scale, and it's really powerful for them, where they can add on the trolley pub, and then they add on the urban tours, and then they add on a 6-pack boat and a COI boat, and suddenly you have a business opportunity of not hundreds of thousands, but you can do 7 figures in small to mid-sized markets when you combine these concepts together. So that's really our vision, is the one-stop shop for going to tours in your city in the long run. That's what TourScale we want it to be.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so cool. I didn't even think of it like that they can do these different brands that you have and literally just send each other send themselves business if they are the owner of multiple vessels. And I think that it's such a cool idea, because people that go on these vacations or trips to these destinations that you guys are in are wanting to do not just not just something on land or not just something in the water. They want to do as much as they can while they're in market, and giving them those options is really cool. And being able to send yourself business that's going to be really rewarding for the ones that do have, the on land and in the water. I feel like that's a smart idea.
Yeah, and the other goal is that all these business units, though, are run on the same system. So you can have one manager, one booking platform, one set of analytics you can run these different business units, kind of like we've learned to do. Yeah. On a micro level. Each city has that same economy of scale, and so it's very profitable by combining these businesses together.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I've mastered, for lack of a better term, the kayaking industry, right? So yeah, we haven't branched out far, if at all, from kayaking, because I feel like that's what we do really well. And I find that it's cool that you guys have found similar things in a completely different way that makes sense, right? Like I can't think of something in my head that, like, kayaking, the version of kayaking on the land, right? Like that would make sense to franchise and whatever.
Yeah.
But yours is similar enough, yet different enough to where it really makes sense. And I just think that it's cool that you've gone far enough to frickin' become a boat manufacturer and a bike manufacturer. And like, I can't even imagine. I've tried to figure out how to manufacture a kayak that seems super easy to manufacture. And man, I've ran into so many hurdles and speed bumps and no, you can't do that and blah, blah, blah. I cannot imagine how that process of building a boat went, and I'm sure it was a long journey. And dude, congrats that you've been able to figure that out and have turned it into what you've turned it into, because I honestly don't think I've met anyone else in our industry that would have been able to actually execute on doing that.
I appreciate it. And I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, by the way. Yeah. Part of it is ignorance, right? Like, I think, overconfidence can be a good thing or a bad thing. And some of it was luck, for sure. Like, we were in the right industry. We had enough knowledge to know the market was there. We didn't do everything perfectly, but I appreciate that. It was a lot of work, for sure.
I believe it. And just as a quick, I guess, recap or finalization here on where we're at too. 28 franchise locations now. Sorry, 26. I still own 2. And 26 are franchised out. How many states are you guys in? Do you know what the stat is on how many states?
The map.
It's got some pins.
Yeah, we're a lot more spread out than you two. Yeah, I have these.
You guys are definitely going broader than we are.
Well, your life is easier than mine, Justin, so don't rub it in. I think we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think we're like in 11 states.
Okay.
Currently.
Cool. So, yeah, that's great. We're at 3. We're getting there. We 2023 was the first year that we went outside of Florida. We have 2 locations now in Texas, 1 in Tennessee. So that's, I think, that's our next, the next move, I think, is really expanding our wings a little bit outside of Florida and seeing what else is out there across the country. And quick thoughts on like 2024 for you guys and any, big initiatives you have planned or things that you're excited for this year.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think we need a part 2 of this interviewing each other, because I think I got to get more of your story, and I think we have a lot more to share. So let's do it. I think this is going to be a 2-parter.
Of course.
But yeah, I think to finish off this pod, I think that's a good one. 2024. So 2023 was an odd year for the industry, I think. We saw a lot of changes in demand across the country. Especially in certain regional areas, like Florida in the Southeast, West Coast, and the Midwest. We definitely saw softening demand. We're seeing a new generation come up, Gen Z, definitely value experiences over things. They also drink a lot less than millennials did. So we're looking at long-term trends, and the actual number, I think, is they drink about 20% less. So we're really focused on diversifying our listings. We'd like to create more family-friendly experiences with the assets that we have. We've been very laser focused on doing what we do really well, these standardized tours, but we're looking at crafting more unique experiences with more value. Things like shark tooth discovery tours for kids on our boats, holiday lights tours on the trolleys. So definitely looking at diversifying the experiences that we do to reach a broader market. And we're really focused on sales. So we want to revamp our whole program. We want to change all of we want to turn customer service, what we call customer service now, into a sales process, right? How do you close phone leads? How do you make sure that all the calls are being followed up with? Are you tracking everything in a CRM that comes in? Most people treat their small business phone on their cell phone. Are you actually using a tool to keep notes? Are you doing outbound sales for corporate tours? Right. So building an actual sales program on behalf of our franchisees and really pushing out probably more aggressive like outreach and follow up. I would say those are the three. I could name a bunch more, but those are probably the biggest three initiatives we're trying to do to increase sales in our mature markets, is diversifying the listings, the sales program. I think I said a third in there. But we see 2024 as kind of a black box. We've all been through this strange business cycle where you had COVID, which really, at least in our industry, decreased sales for a period of time. Then a post-COVID correction, which went crazy in 2021 and 2022. And then we see some normalization in the market. And I think everyone's wondering, is this a new normal? Are sales going to kind of recorrect to the 2019 curve? I'm certainly not going to sit around and wait to see, which is why I want to push out these things to try to increase our market share in our markets.
Yeah.
What do you got lined up?
That's for 2020? Smart. Oh man, you know me. More content, more marketing. It's always just finding where people's attention lies and figuring out how to capture that attention. And I think if you can do that relatively well, then no matter what industry you're in, you can create sales, you can find business, you can grow business. So, it's more of that. I recently hired a community manager, so I want to build more community around our customers and not just have it as transactional, I guess, as it currently is. It seems like, hey, you did our tour, you paid me, you got the experience, you left, okay, and then what? I want to make that more of an experience for the customer and something that they can come back to time and time again. So building out, even a Facebook group just for previous customers. We recently started like a SMS text community where we can text all previous customers. And so I really want to build on the customers we've had. How do we get them to come back? How do we get them to tell their friends and family about us? And how do we get them to feel more bought in with our company than just being a transaction? So I'm really focused on that this year. Really focused on expanding into new markets, new states, and just continuing to make the process as streamlined as possible, as you and I both do on a daily basis. So those are the big things that I think we're working on. And to echo your thoughts, I think, 2023 ended up being a little softer than I was hoping it would be. We fell a little short of the goal that I kind of put out there for ourselves this past year. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen in 2024, but I'm pretty positive in general. So I'm in the mindset that it's going to be a little bit of a growth year for us. And I think we'll go up in terms of revenue, 5 to 10% across the board, hopefully. So I'm looking forward to 2024.
System-wide or same store?
I'll say same store. System-wide, I expect to go up a little bit more than that, but
got it.
Same store.
Well, I'd say that's one thing I really admire about you and your business is like we've kind of grown on opposite sides, right, of the growth strategy. But you're leaning so hard on your brand and community and organic presence. And honestly, it's like really remarkable how well your brand has done, and the amount of reach that you guys have on an organic basis. And, the fact that you're hiring a community manager and engaging your customers in that way is, I find it really inspiring as a fellow business owner. Well done. It's really,
Thanks, man.
really cool.
And I'll give you a sneak peek here.
Yeah.
We are going to be, I don't know if there's one out there, so I don't know if I could say the first, but we're coming up with a mascot, and we're going to have a mascot.
Oh boy.
That is in person and digital. So we're going hard on branding, and that's going to be part of it.
I love it, man. Crushing it.
So yeah, man,
Cool.
This was fun, dude. Thank you thanks for doing this. Yeah, I'm really excited to
do it again.
dig deep. Yeah, I know, right? Let's like do this weekly or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really excited to dig deeper and chat with more guests and bring people on here. And Brett's going to join us on future episodes as well, which will be fun. Yeah. I think he's going to add a cool little third element in here and spark up some fun conversations between us. So,
wild card.
Yeah, in general, looking forward to it, man.
Yeah. Hey, man. First episode, Get Up and Scale. It's for the books.
Yeah.
Let's do it. 2024, baby. 2024.
This is beautiful.
That's just the way it is. I gotta get up, scale, and grow my biz. I gotta scale, grow, get up, go.